and I liked all these guys because I had a lot of fun with them, and but that was not only working with those, but with other musicians, working with big bands, with Woody Herman, doing Woody live, and doing Duke live. I mean, working with Duke Ellington's band, it was really a pleasure. I remember working on a single one night. He brings the band in, and he has 9 pages. 9 pages. I said to Duke, the music was from here to there. I said, what are we doing, Edward? He said, well, I'm going to make the single. I said, but we only need 2.5 minutes. I mean, there's the little 45s. He said, but I think I still have that in the can. I think it's still there. I don't think anybody ever pulled it out. But anyway, so we finished the session that night. We canceled it. So the next night he said, look, you take over the band. You do it. So we did. So I'm trying to take a look at the score and I said, okay, we're going to do an opening chorus. We're going to do this. We're going to do this, and then the ending, and that's it. And the guys did it and did a superb. And I think it was Blackboard Jungle. I think that's one of the singles I think I put out. But it was fun to work with these guys because they were so creative. But working with a record company, I know that you guys would like to know, working with a record company was not that easy. These guys were always stepping in putting their foot out so that you trip over it and blocking everything that you try to do. If you wanted to make a single, they had their own opinion what the single should be. I said, if you think you're so goddamn smart, then you go down there and do it. I mean, I told that to Clive Davis. He said to me, I don't like any of these songs. I said, then Clive, you think you're so smart? I said, you go down there and make it. Well, he never did. Now, I understand he makes, he does some records, but I don't think he really does them anyway. Because working with Clive Davis, I don't think he knows from his elbow. Because I remember his days at CBS when he used to come in and sit with me in my office, because I had the office with 2 doors, the front and the back door. His back door, my back door, went into his office. So he used to know I got there early. He used to come by and sit with me. He'd say, who was that? I said, well, that was Dave Brubeck. That was Thelonious. That was Charlie Mingus. And then he finally would bring some material to me, and I said, that's a piece of crap. You want to do that? I'm not interested, And then he became a great producer, I don't think Clive knows what the word means. I mean, just sitting, to produce a record, you got to be able to get out there and do something. Do something. I mean, John knows what I'm talking about, but he just has a way of getting in the way. I mean, sure, he can give instructions to people, and he can say he doesn't like it, but what don't you like? Well, the easiest thing he says, I don't like the arrangement. Well, anybody can criticize an arrangement. Say maybe the band is too loud or whatever, or the rhythm maybe. He might have learned something over the years, but I don't think too much. But then, working with a guy like Andre Castellans, where you have 90 men sitting out there, and you want to do 6 numbers in 3 hours? 6 numbers in 3 hours? With that kind of, and make the thing really pop? Brother, you got to know what the hell you're doing. And those days it was stereo. You had to do the mix there. And you had to get everything right then and there. You didn't have the luxury of spending $100,000 or $500,000 or $1 million making a record. And you didn't have the option of coming back and redoing it, because you had to account for every dollar that you spent. So during some of those sessions, I would run out. I mean, you couldn't, the maestro couldn't see me. I mean, I'd run out and I'd be on the floor and I'd be telling the drummer, and all of a sudden the thing would, I'd run back in this control bin, I'd make some cockamamie reason, I'd hold it. I said, the machine just went out. Had nothing to do with the machinery. I said, let's take it from the top, maestro. And the guys would be popping. I mean, it was, so, but I'm just saying, you really got to know what the hell you're doing. And then, because when you got back to the editing room, you only had the 2 tracks to work with. And certain things you could do, certain things you couldn't do. We couldn't change the speed because we didn't know too much about what the hell was going on. Especially in the early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. It was a new beginning. I mean, and some of the tracks were not in stereo, they were monaural. So even when you were doing monaural, I did those, you really had to know how to mix that stuff. Brother, and what you tried to do, you put the echo, you did it all at once. I mean, your ears had to be like elephant ears, you know, out here to try to figure out how to do all of this. You know, and then there were times when you wanted to just get up and scream. I remember with Castellanos at the end, because would take an hour and a half trying to set up the balance with the band. Now, from all my experience, assistant conductor, he sat in the control booth with me. He said, "All right, at letter A, Leon." I'd look around. They'd go. The assistant conductor would start to give it down, but stop, stop, stop. I said, "What's wrong, Maestro?" He says, "A little more echo in the woodwinds." I said, meantime, my Italian blood is starting to boil. I said, "Look, Maestro, it would be much better," I said, "if you went out there and conducted, because," I said, "those guys are not going to play for him as they would play for you. When you're conducting, they're going to shape up." You know, he never did that. And I tried it for about 18, 19 years to get him to do it. He would not do it. So one night, at the end of one of the sisters, I tore the goddamn square up, and I threw it against the wall at 30th Street, and I ran out of the studio. I was so goddamn mad, because here it is, and he would take an hour and a half, and then we'd have an hour and a half left with breaks, and you had to do 6 numbers. And it used to infuriate me. I said, "Look, if you just conduct," you know, and I was trying to say, if you just would conduct, you know, so I can get the balance. The engineer can get the balance. He can see what's going on. He can hear what's going on. I mean, they were talking, you want to know about the engine. If you don't have an engineer that's receptive and can do these things quickly, brother, you're in trouble. I mean, I had a session just recently where the engineer couldn't find out where the hell the buttons were. I said, "Look, I want to solo this," and he's looking over the board. He punches it. I said, "No, that's not what I want." I said, "I don't want the whole band. I want that instrument, that trumpet, or that keyboard, or that piano." I just said, I want to see what the microphones are doing. Now, you punch everything else around it and leave that, and let me see what's happening. Maybe there's some leakage. Now, if you listen to my records, there's very little leakage on any of this stuff, unless it's done deliberately. Because I said, that's the one thing, in case you want to remix or do something, change something. I mean, you can do it nowadays, but it's very difficult. And the more we go ahead, the further we're going backwards. The music hasn't progressed anything. It's like going backwards. The sound on some of these records that we hear, it's atrocious. You wonder where the hell the guy was. He might have been in another room playing poker with somebody, or maybe having a couple of drinks or a little cocaine. Who knows? Well, with Gil Evans, you know, the man behind the big orchestral thing was Gil. And Gil was really quite a talented, well, he was always very talented. And I got along with him very well. And we used to laugh and joke about certain things. But when we did sketches with Spain, for instance, Miles didn't show up for 6 sessions. We had about 30 guys. And I finally called, I was doing a show with the president on Sunday. And I said, "Look, I really got a problem here." Jeez, I said, "I've done 6 sessions and Miles is not here yet." And he says, "How's the record going to be?" I said, "It's going to be fantastic. As soon as I can get him in there and make it, it's going to be a brilliant record." He says, "Tio, stay there until you finish it." I said, "Well, that's a long way away, maybe another 10 or 15 sessions." He said, "I don't care how long it takes. You know what you're doing. Just do it." And so when Miles came in, he played, and we made the record, and we were there, I don't know. The last session, I think, lasted something like 14 hours or 15 hours. We started at 10 in the morning, and we finished at 3 in the morning. And then Gil kept saying to me, but Teo, he says to me, I got to make 4 bars. I said, Jesus, I said, you know, it's 1 o'clock now. I don't know what to do. I said, we've been here, we're all exhausted. He said, I got to make 4 bars. I said, can I just hear the 4 bars? He says, so he played the 4 bars. I said, okay, I'll give you to 3 o'clock, 3 a.m. And he said, at that point, I'm going to pull the switch. That's going to be it. Well, you know, we never made the 4 bars. We never made the 4 bars. I mean, he wanted to change it. I know what he was driving at, but as I was telling people much earlier in my career, that the way to do it is not with 4 microphones and balancing them up. This is with 1 microphone. Because the way Gil was writing, you needed 4 microphones to do it. But if he had done it maybe orchestrally and done it acoustically, correct, which I learned to do when I was at Juilliard, 1 microphone would have done it and it would have resolved the problem. But he didn't change the orchestration, so consequently, we never did make it. I mean, and then there were other times when we were doing various records, and we never finished them. And what I did, there was one compilation not so long ago, and there was one thing called Falling Water, which I titled, and I actually even conducted it in the small studio at CBS, because Gil, you know, I don't know if people, he would do, you know, like wave, you know, and the musicians couldn't see, you know, and with me it was, this is where it's going to go, the dominie's here, so forth. So what I would do, I went out and I rehearsed it, then finally Gil came out and took over, and we finally made it. But we never made a finished take. Now, I've got a track of Miles, of this particular piece, that is the most gorgeous piece Miles has ever done. Now, what they did in the last compilation, they used the last take. Now, the last take was crap. It was the first take. There was 1 bar, 2 bars in the last take, and I cut it all up. I cut up all the takes to make one 13-minute piece. And it is absolutely gorgeous. I don't have it here, but I do have it in the country. If you want a copy of it, I'd be glad to give it. And then while I was working on this, I did a couple other things. I went back in the vault and I discovered that there was a lot of things that Gil didn't use on the original Porgy and Bess. And I said, my God, I said, I want to mix it. So I did. I took all the outtakes. These are only outtakes, because things that he didn't do. And what I did, I made an overture to Porgy and Bess. The overture is gorgeous. You hear it, I mean, there has to be a little tweaking here and there, because I didn't have all of the equipment. We didn't have, I can't think of the name of that, Pro Tools like they have it now. I mean, where you can move everything quickly. I mean, we had the 1630 tapes, and you couldn't echo the outgoing. And I said, I tried to get the Japanese, I said, figure out a way so I can echo the outgoing, and I can, you know, make and what we'd have to do, we'd have to make it on a separate machine, and then copy it, put it back in the tape. That was a hell of a job. But then I did this overture of Porgy and Bess. It is absolutely out of sight. I mean, you hear things in there. I took the introduction, for instance, which Gil never used. There was a little thing, and I reverted it. I played it backwards. So it starts off at a distant, and it comes up to such a peak, and then the band is there. And then going out, it goes out the other way. And I tell you, and I did this with a couple of his other pieces at the same time when I was doing it. But these people wouldn't listen at CBS. They do whatever they want to do. I was supposed to do all of the mixing, editing, and so forth. But when they started to tell me that they were going to do this to Miles's tape, put all the outtakes in with the original, I said, look, you don't need me for that. I just can't do that. I can't do it to the artist. I wouldn't do it, and I'm not going to do it. Take your goddamn contract and shove it. And I did. I walked out off the project. And they didn't want to pay me a lot of money. I said, look, that would be the first. I said, but a royalty, they were going to give me a royalty plus money. And I said, I'm not interested. Take the whole goddamn thing. So I've got those tapes stuck away. I mean, but they were done to such a degree that it's absolutely perfect. And when you listen to them, you say, Jesus, why don't you put this stuff out? Because there are at least a half a dozen things that I know of. I could take them out and put them out, like the movie. The movie is great. I mean, when you hear all this music and you say, how is all this possible? How did you figure it all out? Well, I just sat with the Pro Tools. I said, no, that's got to. It comes in 2 bars later, whatever it is, and I said, we'll work around it. And I made some good tapes, which I have in my vault.
Which movie are you talking about?
Huh?
Which movie?
It was called the Boxing Symphony.
Okay.
We were going to do it, but we couldn't get permission from CBS, and the lawyers and the nephew. So, and the guy happened to die, that was going to do the film died just recently. So it was just one thing after another, and I just sort of abandoned the whole project and figuring that maybe someday somebody will do something with them, because they're too good just to leave them there. I mean, the guys who like Miles and the people who want to hear that stuff will flip out, because this Falling Water is absolutely gorgeous. You say, Jesus, and Miles played so beautifully, but I cut everything, minutely and laid it in to come out to 13 or 14 minutes, and we did this with 2 or 3 other pieces. And then, of course, the overture of Porgy and Bess. I mean, that would be a million seller, guaranteed. But those jerks, they don't want to listen, so I'm not going to argue with them.